Hi there, welcome to Victim to Victor, the podcast dedicated to empowering abuse survivors and inspiring healing, hope, and positive change. I'm Verma, a published author, and in every episode, I'll sit down with a guest and embark on an insightful conversation about trauma, as well as practical strategies to start the healing process. So let's get started. I hope you enjoy the show. Here is Dr. Sangeeta Sahi again on episode 3 of our series. Hello again, Dr. Sangeeta. How are you doing?
I'm really well, Anu. Thank you and your listeners for having me back. Excellent. And for their time and attention and your time and attention in sharing my knowledge and experience.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got a very exciting episode today. We're going to be looking at planetary trauma and humanity's role in this as well, and also how we can heal the earth. But we want to first go into just the fact that, we know that trauma is a bridge between spiritual life and daily living, because this is a concept that you've just come up with. Please do explain that.
Well, Anu, that a lot of my work centers around the kind of the alignment between spirituality and physicality and science. So obviously science representing our physical lives and existence, and spirituality representing that which is maybe more intangible and more non-materialistic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's always been this very interesting and controversial space where spirituality's been separated from science and from everyday life. And the concept that, spirituality is all about non-materialism, and therefore to be a spiritual person, you can't really be too involved in material life. And, if you are, then you're not very spiritual. And I just want to clean that up and clear it up. It's not true. Okay. Spirituality is that part of our lives that we are not quite aware or conscious of. So, and physicality is obviously those part of our life which we are very conscious and aware of, and we can touch, see, hear, smell, experience, interact with. So imagine that there's this continuum, like continuum of where we get very, very physical, and we can touch, hear, smell, everything. And then slowly in that continuum, it gets more and more and more subtle, where things feel more and more energetic. They feel more and more like intangible, but you can still sense them. They're vibes, and there's a sense there that there is something there, but you can't put your finger on it because you can't see it. You may not be able to hear it. Some people can hear stuff, and so it gets more and more. We go into the subtlety of material life.
Yeah,
it's still it's all connected, but it's just more subtle.
Yeah. Okay.
And so therefore, because it's subtle, we can't feel it as directly as we can feel the sort of more dense material existence.
Yeah.
And as you rightly pointed out, and this is exactly how I focus my work with trauma, is within this incredible continuum lies this space of trauma, where trauma is literally the bridge between the spiritual, the subtle realms, and the physical. And why is it like that? Why do I say that? I say that because it's like almost the block or the passage that we need to go through in order to get past the physical, get into more of the energetic and more subtle realms,
Yeah.
and take that energy and that emotion and that love and that healing and bring it back into the physical material.
Interesting. Okay, absolutely. And I suppose that brings us on to the youth and younger people who are getting a lot more in tune with their own spiritual growth and journeys, aren't
Well, I think the younger people are a little bit more empathic.
they? Mm,
So that means that actually they're more sensitive. So they pick up these things probably a little bit faster, let's
yeah.
say, and a little bit more directly than maybe older people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah. The brains are a lot
but
more faster.
that's a generalization as well, though, because there are some
Yeah, that's fine.
incredible, older people. So I don't want to go into generalizations, but
No.
there is this whole sense that the sort of younger ones, and the younger ones, I think, feel this kind of need almost to not get so directly involved with what's going on in the world. And I think that part of that relates back to, why they're online so much and why they love technology so much, because
Yeah.
technology allows them to separate from
Yeah.
directly from life and
Yeah.
everything that's going on,
Yeah.
and relate to it in a kind of, it's further away.
Yeah.
So they don't
Absolutely.
have
Yeah.
to relate to it, you know,
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
literally.
And
So
I was
there's
like,
that going on. And then I think what's really important for me that I've seen with them is what they tend to do is the only way that they can move past some of the things that they find unpleasant, whether it's memories or it's experiences or interactions, is they literally tell me, um, we need to move away from our parents. We need to move away from our inner family circles. And when
right.
we move away, then after a while, we can come back in again because
Okay.
we know how to deal with life and we've had our own experiences. But if
Yeah.
we're in it, then we don't we don't allow ourselves the space
Yeah.
to have our own experiences, and our parents and our inner family circles constantly influence us.
Yeah.
So we can't do what we need to do and experience what we need to experience. So we
Yeah.
end up separating
Mm.
and then coming back
Okay.
later when we are ready. And it's a very interesting it's an interesting way, because the parents then also have space and time to be able
Absolutely.
to understand what is going on with their children who've moved away for a little while and
Yeah.
separated from them.
It's
And
true.
they always say, when we come back together, it's like we can talk to each other, we can communicate in a very different way than if we are constantly in each other's faces
So
and
true.
fighting and,
Yeah.
going
Absolutely.
through stuff. And sometimes, especially I find when we were talking last time, Anu, about cultural trauma,
Yeah.
you know, I think with cultural trauma, maybe communicating is not always the best way,
No.
because in many cultures, um, talking and discussing openly is not a very natural way of problem solving.
No. Okay.
In
Yeah.
Western cultures, it is much more of a kind of, there's a little bit more openness and there's a little bit more of like,
Yeah.
okay, there's less guilt and shame around
Communication.
expressing your problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think that in more sort of Eastern and Asian cultures and Middle Eastern cultures, it's not about confrontation, because it's a non-confrontational culture. So it's more about like giving each other space and saying, okay, I think, you know what, I need to kind of just go off and be with my own group or give myself space, and you guys need to be in your own space.
Yeah.
And then you come back and it's different.
That
The
is.
whole,
Yeah.
time is allowed things to change and transform.
Absolutely.
So that's another way of healing. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Yeah, so you're saying that space is important.
Space and also time and space, both together. They're very important. And in that time and space, it's not about passive healing. It's like literally the two kind of groups or communities or beings are experiencing something different. And then they come back. So it's active. It's not passive experiencing. It's active experiencing, but coming back with a different mindset, with a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think is people's concept of trauma?
I think it's really different for everybody. I think that there are definitely general things that people find traumatic. And I think the most traumatic, obviously, is emotional trauma, because, again, the emotions are the bridge between the mental and the physical.
Okay.
So for most people, they're going to be emotionally hurt and traumatized, which will then lead on to maybe physical trauma, but it may not be, because it may be that they have emotional trauma and emotional unpleasantness, and that then goes into mental trauma because they have the memories held within the emotions and within the experiences that then creates a mental emotional trauma. And then there are other people, of course, that have the emotional and the physical, because there may be a lot of physical abuse also connected up with emotional abuse.
Okay. Interesting.
So
yeah.
it's very interesting, because I think, generally speaking, I think we really don't, we're not aware of the extent to how much we affect each other. Especially, if you're living together, it doesn't matter what your relationship is, whether it's a husband or wife, whether it's parents and children, whether it's, siblings or whatever it is, you're living together in the same space, and you don't know, and we're not that sensitive or aware of how our our personalities are, and how that affects the other person. And therefore, what could, like I said to you in our first session, what could be traumatic for somebody else could be nothing, could be absolutely nothing for another person. And what could be it could be the other way around. So these are, because we've all got different levels of tolerance as well. And, meters of pain and emotion, and what creates something to be painful, and what creates something to be, oh, that's okay, I just shirk that off, it's water off a duck's back, doesn't really matter.
Right. Yeah.
We've all got our own personal meter for that. And our own personal resilience.
Yeah, we do.
So trauma, and also trauma is different, I think, in different generations.
Yeah. And last time we were going to go more into the layers of trauma.
Well, it ties in with what I said about the continuum between the spiritual and the material, because within that continuum, you've got the layers.
Yeah.
Let's say spirituality has got its own layers, because within the realms of the non-material, there are so many layers of subtlety.
Oh, okay.
And then you've got this whole continuum between the material and the non-material and all the things in between. So some traumas may be very shallow, very superficial, and therefore very, very easy to heal, to neutralize, to dissolve, to forget.
Yeah.
And others create patterns. And those patterns then get in between the layers of the memories, and then they stick. And depending on how long that pattern has been repeated over and over again will depend on how long maybe, or how easy or difficult it is for that to unstick first of all, then to go into unfolding, dissolving, and finally disappearing.
Okay. Yeah.
But there is definitely, there's definitely a system in place which goes from the emotional, and like I said, it can go into the mental layers and not touch the physical layers.
Okay.
And then there is other emotional that goes right from the physical and the mental, because the mental is the memory.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a very, very simple example that I know
Okay.
all your listeners will relate to.
Yeah.
Women who give birth to
Yeah.
babies. Now, actual childbirth is very, very traumatic. I'm sure you remember.
Wow.
And I've delivered many, many babies.
Have you? Okay.
And yes, and every mother tells me that they completely forget what it was like to have a baby, to go through birthing.
Pain.
They said if we remembered, we would never do it again.
Oh. That's funny.
Well, but it's true. And we know that. That's been recorded and verified scientifically, that the body just forgets certain things which are natural, because otherwise, you wouldn't have another baby. You would the human species would have come to an end ages ago. If the cells remembered how painful childbirth is.
Absolutely.
So there are lots and lots of traumas that we forget very easily, and it's naturally encoded within us to forget them.
Okay. It is, yeah. So, okay, let's go on to planetary trauma.
Okay, so planetary trauma, why do I call it as trauma? Well, if you look at what's going on the planet right now, you look at the trees that we're chopping down.
Yeah.
You look at all the pollution that human activities are spreading. You look at all the waters that we are polluting with our human activities. Wouldn't you say that that was trauma that we are creating for the planet?
Absolutely. Yeah. Self-inflicted.
I mean, if you actually go in and look at all the sea life that we are destroying because of our own human activities and
overfishing.
lifestyles. Did you know, Anu, that the seventh most polluting industry on our planet, the seventh most polluting industry on our planet, guess is what?
Have no idea.
Fashion.
Oh, okay.
So we, right from the beginning of the value chain of textiles, clothes, where they come from, right to the end of selling them, transporting them, distributing them, wearing them, washing them, and then dumping them. All of that is, like, from beginning to end, the seventh most polluting activity on this planet. And we are doing it directly, each one of us. Each one of us is responsible. Right. There's no one that can say, well, I don't have any part in this. So it's really interesting when you look into how our behavior, our human behavior, affects our planet, because I'm definitely of the belief that whatever we do comes back to us in one form or another. And I mean this on an individual level as well as a collective level.
Yeah.
So if we look at planetary trauma is a collective level of trauma.
Okay.
And almost like a collective karma. Our human activities have, over time, taken us to this space where now collectively we are experiencing climate change, we're experiencing, pollution, we're experiencing diseases that are affecting us, that are affecting the animals, that are affecting our livelihoods, that are affecting everything.
Wow.
So it comes back to us because we are responsible. So if we are responsible, we're responsible for creating this trauma.
Yeah.
If we look at it that way. And I think it just takes for us as individuals to be just a little bit more mindful.
Okay.
And if each one of us can be that mindful, then we can create collective change in a very short span of time.
I mean, how can we stop this though? I mean, we can't stop wearing clothes.
No, but there's all sorts of things that communities are doing now. It's so interesting, actually. There are many things that we're experimenting with, ways. So instead of throwing clothes away, there's obviously recycling.
Yeah.
Then there's upcycling that lots of designers are getting involved in and experimenting with now, is like literally taking old clothes and reconstituting them, tearing them up, cutting them, and sewing different things together from different clothes.
That's a good
and
idea.
Creating a completely new outfit. Exactly. And then there's wonderful communities that have come up around friends getting together and saying, okay, like Anu's got a whole load of clothes that are in good condition, that she doesn't really wear anymore, and she doesn't think she's going to wear them because maybe they don't fit her anymore, or maybe that's not her style anymore. And she's got 5 other friends who've got similar things with their clothes, and they all get together, have a party, and they all exchange clothes with each other.
Okay.
Absolutely free. So it's creating the bonding and the friendship and the socializing aspect, as well as, you get to wear new clothes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
And you get to experiment, and it's free. You don't even have to pay for it. So
Exactly.
there are lots of things actually that people are doing, lots of experiments that are going on. And of course, then there's also the rental market, because now a lot of designers have gone into rentals, and they're saying, well, okay, we've got beautiful clothes from our old collections that don't need to be thrown away or whatever, but can be rented out to people.
Yeah.
So there are rental closets and websites for that. So there's a lot of things going on regarding fashion, and of course the same thing with jewelry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. So there are ways to change, but obviously when it comes to chopping down trees and what can we do with that? I suppose we're using less paper anyway now. Everything's all online.
I think we can just plant more trees. That's an easy way. And we can also, I think, definitely make governments aware that we care. And this is very important, because governments are only good for the votes that they get from people.
Right.
So if they know that people do not want this and they're against this policy, one of the biggest examples is the Amazon rainforest. where so much is being destroyed, so many really ancient, old plants and trees and all sorts of things, and biodiversity, because it's one of the most biodiverse places on this planet.
Yeah.
And it's being destroyed at a very, very fast pace. So there's lots of, demonstrations about that. The reason that I felt it was very important to bring up planetary trauma in this series, Anu, is because I want people to be aware that it affects each one of us directly. It's not something that's far away. It's not something that is something that doesn't affect you or me, or it affects somebody living in Bangladesh or somebody living in Sri Lanka or somebody living in Indonesia. We know that. See, theoretically, we know because we've had floods in the UK.
Yeah.
We've had climate changes. We've had all sorts of things happening. And we've got many, many communities waking up and actually taking action and saying, no, we need to take responsibility.
Brilliant.
And they're getting together, and companies, sustainability, companies focusing on sustainability issues. And one of the most interesting is the younger people, because they seem to be programmed and encoded with caring about the planet naturally.
Okay.
So for them, climate change and taking care of the planet is a no-brainer. It's second nature. It's part of who they are.
Yeah.
It's not something that they need to be educated about.
Okay.
And that's what I see that is really interesting, because when I talk to them about planetary trauma and about the foundation, the Unified Human Foundation that I founded in the UK and in the US, they're all like, oh my God, how can I volunteer? What are you doing? What are the projects? What do they involve? This is so interesting. This is so exciting. And I want to be a part of this. How can I be a part of it?
Oh, wow.
They're just excited about nature. They're excited about, biodiversity. They're excited about the oceans.
Brilliant. That's good. Yeah.
So
yeah, obviously that's down to good schooling, right?
well, I don't think so, honestly. I think it's down to nature at the end of the day. I think every generation is different. And I think that every generation has got its own sets of contributions that it's come here to make to the planet and to life on Earth.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think, and I want to also bring in, when I've facilitated volunteer groups in nature with some of the projects that we sponsor and we support, trauma doesn't exist anymore.
Wow.
Because nature is the greatest healer.
Yeah.
We know that. You go into nature, you do a retreat, you just breathe. You go into green space, you just feel happy for no reason.
Strange.
Well, think about it, Anu. I mean, like, when the sun comes out, what do you feel?
Oh my God, it's feel good, right? Instantly.
Why do we spend so much money running away to places that are warm and sunny?
Yeah. Wow.
It makes us smile. Even me talking about the sun is making you smile.
It is, yeah. But then I just think, well, it doesn't dilute the fact that, we've had trauma in our lives.
It doesn't dilute the fact, but it definitely takes our attention away from it.
Yeah, it does.
It puts our attention somewhere else. And it allows us to have the opportunity to do something more fulfilling.
Yeah.
And as soon as we start engaging with something that is more purposeful and fulfilling, the effect of the trauma gets less and less and less. It decreases in intensity.
Okay. So basically, fulfillment will heal trauma eventually.
fulfillment will, that's the end result.
Yeah.
And one of the steps of doing that, which people know because they've done it over and over again, helping other people
Yeah.
heals trauma.
It does. It so does. Yeah.
So that is its own fulfillment.
It is. Yeah. Contribution, giving back, and just, serving the higher good.
We're serving the higher good within ourselves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We forget that. We always think that the higher good is outside.
Yeah.
And we need to really know that, okay, that is also inside us. Because what is outside is connected inside. There's no
Yeah.
separation.
No.
And that's this whole thing that I was talking about, the physical and the spiritual.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, healing the earth will heal us.
It does.
Mm.
Because the earth nurtures us. Where does our food come from?
The earth.
Is that not sustaining us?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if we support her, all
Mm.
she's going to do is support us back over and
Yeah.
over again.
Mm-hmm. So what's the one thing that my listeners can start to do as of today?
I'll tell you what they can do, and this is going to sound really funny, but I'll tell you so many people that I it's fabulous what's happening actually in inner London. Means like in the borough of Tower Hamlets
Okay.
and in the borough of Haringey. These are like really inner city London areas where they're poorer. There's lower socioeconomic places, but there are surgeries now, doctors' practices, which I'm so thrilled about, that have actually got little gardens on the back in the back of the surgery, in the back of the practice, where they tell their patients, obviously in good weather, go sit outside. Don't wait in the waiting room. Go sit outside. Get yourself some air, get yourself some sunshine, get yourself some nature. They've got like herb gardens and kitchen gardens where they're growing things in surgeries. I mean, and this is what used to be with the countryside and the rural areas. People didn't have so many mental health issues because they were living in nature. And you ask anybody who lives by the sea or lives in the Lake District or lives in, they're like, we're too busy, we're too engaged in life to be thinking so much about what somebody said and what somebody did and like going on, and not to minimize trauma. No, not at all. But definitely when you get involved in a community, you feed the community feeds you back. And the community always involves nature. So I've got, in London where I live, I've got a forest. Part of Epping Forest is close to me. I'm very, very blessed in that way and very grateful, because during lockdown, we could just go and take a walk in the forest. And it was amazing how the mood just changes. And I saw people, this was wonderful. These are Londoners hugging trees. And you think it's funny, but it's real.
That's cute. That is cute.
I'll tell you something else. In Japan, Anu, they have forests. They use forest bathing as a form of therapy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's a legitimate form of therapy for mental health, for depression, for people who have got suicidal tendencies.
Right.
They have groups, and therapists take them out into the forest where they literally lie on the forest floor. Wow. And they allow the earth's energies and the trees and everything around them to just come into their space, and they immerse themselves in these environments and surroundings.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So, with a lot of this talk now about lockdown and about staying at home, it's going to be difficult for people to get out, especially in the winter months.
I know, but I think actually on some level it's not that difficult. I think the weather isn't that bad.
No.
I know it gets colder as we go into January and February, but
Mm,
when the weather isn't that bad, I would really urge people to go out for a walk, even if it's just for 20 minutes.
really.
That makes a world of difference. It makes a world of difference to their bodies. Forget about just their mental health and their moods,
Yeah.
but their bodies, the lungs start breathing differently because you start breathing differently when you go for a walk.
Yeah.
You will find that if you're mindful, Anu, you can watch yourself sitting and how you breathe while you're watching TV
Yeah.
versus how you breathe when you go out for a walk.
Okay. Yeah, I think
And
that's
it's a
quite.
it's very interesting as well. I would recommend to your listeners and encourage them to actually do a few experiments of their own. Like they can become aware of how they breathe while they watch TV, how they breathe while they go walking and they go out shopping, and how they breathe when they go out for a walk.
Okay.
It'll be different each time.
And that'd be quite a good little task to do, something to practice. So, yeah, definitely just watch your breathing and just feel the breath go in and out, and just compare that to when you go for a walk, for example. And I suppose a big indicator is when you're a bit stressed out and you start to breathe shallow, and you're not really breathing in enough oxygen, and then that creates more anxiety and stress. So this is why it's so important in times of heightened anxiety to just really slow down the breath. And they say to spend more time breathing in than actually breathing out as well. So that's a good tactic to have.
Yes, it is, because you obviously breathe in more oxygen and life force, etc.
Yeah.
But you know that the breath is actually how we can directly release traumatic thoughts.
Okay.
And literally, with the breath, let them go.
Right. Let them go.
And one of the other important things about breathing consciously is that we slow down our thoughts in our brains.
Okay.
The greatest trigger of anxiety
Okay.
is overthinking.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
We're just constantly in the loop of thinking, 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 thinking.
Mm,
And if you focus on your breathing, then you don't focus on your thoughts. You focus on your breath.
right.
So you slow down.
It's about slowing down. Yeah.
And this is the perfect time, winter. And if we're going to be under lockdown, to have an opportunity to practice slowing down.
Okay. Yes, it is. I think it's a good opportunity as well to slow down. And now will also be a good opportunity for you to talk about Unified Human Foundation and all of the projects that you're involved in at the moment.
Well, Unified Human Foundation, it's a charity and a nonprofit, and we select projects and initiatives that we want to support, and they need to support and unify human beings with nature. And then through the projects, people also interact, unite, collaborate, and learn and experience. But the focus is on nature and the planet rather than on the human.
Okay.
And this is our mission is to be able to get people to think more about the planet and nature, and and get more creative about the ways that we interact with her and the effects that it has on nature and the planet and on ourselves and our communities.
Fantastic.
I've worked with many indigenous people and indigenous cultures, and the amount of experience and wisdom that they have without going to school, without being in classrooms,
Yeah.
it's just, it's incredible. It's something indescribable. It's something that only if you experience, you can understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They understand the planet, they understand seasons, they understand plants, animals, they understand our relationship with each other.
Okay. Mm.
And some of these communities have got access to incredible historical knowledge and data about humanity and civilizations. So that's knowledge that technology isn't really acknowledging. And it's knowledge and it's direct experience that is missing. It's missing from our communities, it's missing from our lives. So we, with us at Unified Human Foundation, with our boards and trustees and our team leaders and project leaders, we felt this great need to reconnect people with nature, and also this need to help and support leaders to come forward and become stewards, genuine, authentic stewards of this planet that we call home.
Right.
So that's it. But we're a curator. And we've got, one of the things that we put out there is we have an educational platform. And some of the projects that we have, a project right now in India, in South India, in Kerala, where we are supporting tribal housing, eco-friendly housing for tribal populations,
Nice.
as well as the cultivation of medicinal plants.
Okay. Oh.
So that's one project. Then we have another project that we're supporting in Lebanon, which is the regeneration and cultivation and preservation of the ancient and sacred cedar trees. The cedar trees have a wonderful history, the Lebanon cedar trees, because they were the original cedars that were made to, that were used to make King Solomon's temple.
Oh, okay.
So that is a very sacred
Yeah.
part of Judaic and Middle Eastern history.
Okay.
That's the second project. The third project that we're supporting, which is is the US board, is Wild Coast. Wild Coast is an NGO. We support, most of our projects are connected up with existing NGOs in different countries. So we've got the NGO in Kerala, we've got the NGO in Lebanon, we've got the NGO in the US, and they are cultivating mangroves on the coastline of between Mexico and San Diego,
Right. Okay.
which was originally tribal land, Native American tribal land, that coastline. And so they are cultivating mangroves, and mangroves are very well known to enhance oxygen and enhance the algae and the the sea life in that area, to regenerate it, and obviously neutralize carbon dioxide. So these are the 3 projects we've curated so far, and each one has got a community and a system where you can volunteer. So if anybody's interested in volunteering, we can guarantee security, health, safety. Right now, obviously, it's a little bit fluid because of what's going on with COVID. But pre-COVID, there were many volunteers, and these volunteers just love it. We've got volunteers from different parts of the States volunteering with the Mangrove Project, and they just love it. There are exchange programs going on. The tribal children come in and they tell their stories of the tribes and the lands. It's a wonderful program. And same thing with the HRDS tribal project in India, South India. It's again a completely different world, completely green, green, green.
Beautiful.
So please do have a look. I would encourage your listeners to have a look at the website, unifiedhuman.org.
Yeah.
I would also encourage your listeners to have a look at my website, my professional website, which is genuinehumanbeing.com.
Okay.
And I guess I'm assuming that our next episode will be the last one for this year. And there's something special that I'd like to talk about family trauma, because it's post-Christmas.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think if we can just have a space to talk about that. But what I would also really invite your listeners to do is maybe send in some questions.
Okay.
And send in maybe some of their experiences that they've had with their families during Christmas.
Sure. Okay.
Or any time, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be great. Okay. So before that, listeners, if you do have any questions for us, then please do contact myself or Dr. Sangeeta. So you can contact me via my social media channels or website, or Dr. Sangeeta as well. She's on all the social media channels. She's on Instagram as well. And I will be including the link for her websites, LinkedIn and Instagram, as well as YouTube. I'll be including that in the description box, so please do get in touch with us. And we do hope that you enjoyed the 3rd series on planetary trauma and how to heal the earth, because as we know, by healing the earth, we'll heal us. And with the planet undergoing all this trauma it's experiencing, we are the ones that are suffering, each and every one of us. So we do need to work collectively here and to be mindful and to look out for each other as well as our beautiful earth. So thank you again, Dr. Sangeeta, for an amazing episode.
Thank you. And I just want to wish all your listeners and yourself a really, really happy Christmas and a lovely holiday season. And stay well, keep well, eat well, and enjoy.
Absolutely. And until the next episode, you stay safe, my friends, and we shall be back. Take care. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Victim to Victor. Subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes, and be sure to follow the podcast on socials to keep updated on what's next, and share Victim to Victor with family and friends to help grow the community and spread the positive healing energy. You may also wish to join me on the path to self-discovery and sign up to my 12-week self-empowerment plan, which will be linked below.